What's up, everyone? My name is Alex, and I use he, him, his pronouns or am, airs pronouns, and I am doing a short video on demigender identities, talking about being demigender and what that means. So in the first video, I went over demigender very briefly. Demigender just means that you are partially a gender. So if you say that you are demi-boy, it means that you are partially male. If you say you're a demi-girl, you are partially female. Demi-non-binary means that you are partially non-binary. That one is pretty non-specific. Non-binary can mean literally anything, but some people just refer to themselves as non-binary without a distinct sort of non-binary gender. They seem okay with the word non-binary by itself. So demi-non-binary can be a specific term, and you can be demi anything. You can be demi-agender, you can be demi-neutroi. Most commonly, demigender would mean partially a gender and partially genderless. So partially male, partially agender, partially girl, partially agender. That partial part of the identity can be any percentage. Normally, when you say demi-boy, you are kind of putting the male part of the identity out in front, and it's like you are partially or mostly a boy. Demigender can be any combination of genders. It doesn't have to be partially one gender and then partially genderless. You can be, demi-maverick. You can be, part maverick and part neutroi. For a while, I thought that I was part male, part neutroi. It kind of fits still. I still call myself a demi guy. I still have a demi boy tattoo on my arm, which kind of stinks when you make new gender discoveries. It stinks having a tattoo of a previous gender identity, but thankfully it still technically fits. But I consider myself bigender. It's two distinct genders. I mean, you can consider bigender to be two partial identities, but you can also call it demigender, which that is the same thing. It depends on whether or not you find that second part to be so important to your gender experience that you feel the need to distinguish this as two genders, not just parts of genders coming together. And like I said, that partial gender, demi so-and-so, demi-girl, demi-boy, demi anything, that part can be, a small amount of the identity, or it could be most of the identity. When you are experiencing, a very fractional amount of gender, you would call it nanogender. I believe the new term now is pixel gender because of where the term nanogender comes from, but that means like less than half. Like, it is a very marginal amount of that identity, but it is important enough to include in the word of the identity. It may be a very tiny amount of that gender, but like, you want to make that distinction that you experience that gender. When you feel mostly a gender, when you are mostly a gender, that is magigender. And that just, magigender can be, same thing as demigender. It can be any combination of parts of genders. You can also just call yourself a demi-boy or demi-girl, and maybe there is no other part to that identity. Maybe it's just a partial gender. Lesser known terms, I brought up magigender, meaning mostly a gender. Libragender means that you are mostly agender, genderless, but you have a distinct connection with another gender. If you're Libra male, it means that you are mostly agender and you have a particular connection with malehood. There is paragender. That means that you feel very close to a gendered experience, but there is another part of the identity that keeps you from identifying that gender fully. That may mean that, like, you are 99% a specific gender, but that 1% is a different gender, and it keeps that identity from being 100%. There is neutrogender, which is partially neutroi and partially another gender. So it's saying demi-neutroi, but I think that it is kind of a broader term. being like, it can also mean like partially gender neutral. It doesn't have to specifically mean partially neutroi. And it's probably less of a mouthful than demi-neutroi. I can see why like neutrogender is a bit of a like different term. It's a little bit shorter. It's a little bit easier to say. Neutrox is a term under that. It just means that you are partially neutroi and partially genderless. And usually you would just call it like demi-neutroi, demi-agender, demi-male, demi-female. Normally you would just put the word demi in front of the word, but you can also find terms that, you know, like Libragender, which are like very specific demigender identities and very distinct, like partially a specific identity and partially another one to go with that. So, I mean, that's it for demigender identities. Just some basics there. And the next episode, we are talking about gender fluidity and fluctuation. So we're going to revisit being gender fluid and gender flux, and we're going to talk about lesser known terms under those umbrellas. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I am signing off for now. See you later.